In this video, we're talking all about Tiana's Bayou adventure. We're talking about Disney HR. We're talking about Indy coming back. We have a lot to discuss here on OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. We have a lot on our plate today, so we're going to dive right in. But before we do that, I want to introduce my fantastic panel over here. I got producer Dre Vasky, host of the Freshly Squeezed show here on the channel. Welcome back, Dre.
Hello there. Happy to be back. And you're right, we do have quite a bit, so we should probably dispense with the pleasantries in due time. So if you guys want to follow me, it's going to be right there at Vashsky. Just go ahead, type that in, and it should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussions right there. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55, where you can see my show there as well, Freshly Squeezed. Your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh, right from the Grove.
There we go. And down below, we have the Family Man 23, sponsored by Manscaped. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He's not.
pretty soon. You never know.
Pretty soon. We're gonna fake it till we make it. Eventually, it'll have. We're gonna bring it in. We'll put that out in the universe, right? And we'll attract it. But George, welcome back, brother. Do appreciate you coming back on the show, sir. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, my friend.
Absolutely. You could find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You could check out the podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you can find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Pay attention. It's Joe time.
Perfect. So we're going to start off not with the parks. We're actually starting off with C-suite, some executive stuff going on. So you might want to say we're going to...
Oh no! I must have hit that track switch!
We're hitting the track switch and we're doing something a little different starting off. Don't worry, we will talk about the parks. First topic today is Sonia Coleman, named Chief Human Resources Officer of the Walt Disney Company. Dre, you want to set the table, my friend?
Yes, it appears that Sonia Coleman has been named the Senior Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer of the Walt Disney Company, effective April 8th. Here's the thing about this kind of announcement. We've been talking about how we believe that the Disney company is heading into kind of a different direction, a different era, let's say, with this kind of the latest CEO admin of Iger recently, right? And that, hey, the company, they're looking to instill some changes, right, at their organizational structure and so forth. And so this is kind of a big move right here. She succeeds Paul Richardson, who was leaving the company after more than 15 years at Disney. He has been in this role for quite a long time. So to have somebody come over from ESPN Human Resources and actually be the Chief Human Resources Officer of the company, this is a very kind of interesting thing right here. And what there is both when we want to look at the kind of outlook of the Walt Disney Company, this kind of speaks volumes to it. And really, it could go either way. It could be something that's concerning, or it could be something that's that offers hope, let's say, or is inspirational, or is, I don't know, black pill or white pill. I don't know how you want to describe it, but it does go off in either direction. There's evidence for and against and so forth, and we can kind of go ahead and break that down. But OG, George, what were your kind of initial thoughts about this?
Well, my initial thoughts, I wasn't really familiar initially with Miss Coleman. So I didn't really have too many thoughts in regards to this. I dug in, and it's interesting. It's very interesting. Her tenure over at ESPN has been, fairly controversial, to say the least. And it's very much tied to, what would you call it? I mean, some people call it
medical procedure.
Well, that, and like being I get, woke and, the identity politics and all that stuff while she was at ESPN. The way she ran, the HR over there at ESPN, right? It was a very controversial tenure, so to speak. And so it's interesting when she came over, well, when she got promoted and to be the chief HR officer for the Walt Disney Company. There's been a lot of speculation and concern that, okay, is she gonna keep going down that road, right? Because we were told that she's gonna or that Iger wants to moderate the company. Now, here's the thing. I actually understand and respect that concern. Absolutely. Anytime you're looking at any kind of executive, sometimes the best way to see how they're going to do in the future is to look at their past. And that's a fair way to kind of assess the situation. In my opinion, and I might be way too Pollyanna-ish over this, but I think it's a new era, a new day, so to speak, at the Walt Disney Company. Bob Iger has really stressed accountability. He's really pushing that accountability thing. He mentioned we're gonna depoliticize Disney, moderate Disney, and I think that will continue despite her being the chief human resources officer and despite her being not so moderate at ESPN. I kind of liken it to James Gunn, right? Look, everyone's kind of applauding Mr. David Zaslav for moderating Warner Brothers, kind of getting out of politics, what he's doing over there at CNN and what have you. Hey, look, James Gunn's a very political guy. He's a leftist. He was on Twitter going after people and the 45th president and this whole thing. He was very active, very, very woke, as they say, right? David Zaslav brought him into Warner Brothers and gave him a massive role to run DC Studios. I didn't hear anyone saying, well, this guy's woke. Does this mean Zaslav is backpedaling on the no politics or moderating Warner Brothers? No, because you know why? James Gunn can do a job and leave his politics out of it, right? And he doesn't have to get on Twitter or any of that. Now, with this woman, it's the same thing. Yes, she has a history, just like James Gunn, but with Iger saying we can't have that, we got to give her a fair shake and understand that she might be able to change that course as well, just as James Gunn did, in my opinion. Go ahead, Dre. I'm sorry, sir.
Go ahead, George.
And that's honestly what it should be. It was back in the day where you wouldn't even know anybody's political background. It was basically all kind of under wraps, behind the curtain, so to speak, no pun intended. Yeah. Where now with social media and everybody kind of being gung-ho of throwing their political viewpoints out, and I think that's where a lot of people tend to let that be the drive and the main focus of, okay, so if they're a leftist, we can't have them doing this, or if they're far right, they can't do this, or if they're middle ground, they can't do this. I honestly say it's like when they were, I mean, not to go even off the deep end here, where they say separation of church and state. Right. To be honest, it should actually be the same way in this matter, where I worry about, can the person do the job? And if they can, it really should be, politics should be left out of it on both ends. Like, have the people looking in not judge the person because of what their political background is, and to the person itself, don't be throwing their own political beliefs down their throat and using their job as their platform for that.
Go ahead, Dre.
I do agree, George. I mean, it's look, we're in the entertainment space, and we're, Disney is a 4-quadrant entertainment company, or at least historically has been. It doesn't make sense to instill strife in neither your product or in your organization. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You probably want to at least, with the content that you produce, you probably want to invite everybody, or the largest amount of people possible, to your film or TV product or whatever. In your organization, you probably don't want to ostracize anybody. You probably don't want to make people feel left out or disenfranchised or whatever, whatever terminology you actually want to use. But that's exactly what a key whistleblower actually said of ESPN's culture lately. It's interesting. This is a lawsuit right here, but there was a a Project Veritas video posted. I understand. I get it. I get it. I understand. There is some controversy surrounding them as well right now, at least with their the head of that organization, James O'Keefe, and actually I think he went off on his own and started his own. He actually launched his own media group today, which is interesting. But that's a whole other story. At this time, okay, a whistleblower from within the organization went to Veritas themselves and said, hey, we got problems. And I won't play this video. You can go ahead and look it up. All it is ESPN Veritas if you want to, okay? And if you have a problem with Veritas, I get it. I got it. But this whistleblower came to them with their own footage that they had filmed in amongst their colleagues, expressing a lot of the same sentiment, that they had felt ostracized, that they had felt that they were being treated differently because of their background, right? Because of what skin color they were, what their identity was, what their political affiliation was, and so forth. Okay, that is very disturbing. And when they went to HR, they were told, kick rocks, essentially. That is a disturbing allegation at around the time that this head of HR was actually at ESPN. And at the same time as well, you have this lawsuit coming out. Now, this is by the Washington Examiner. Again, I understand some people have problems with the sources. I'm just reporting on the lawsuit as it was filed. You can see here, official documentation right here, and they just report on what they see. And this was filed in January, looks like January 11, 2023. And the plaintiffs allege that while they were actually working at ESPN, even though they were doing work from home, right? They weren't actually in the office, but there was a mandate that was company wide, Disney, where you had to have a certain medical procedure, right? And you either partook in that medical procedure or you didn't work there anymore. Now, there were some religious exemptions that people could, maybe qualify for. I can just tell you right now, they were given out, they weren't loose with that. A lot of people had to fight claw for those religious exemptions to actually get it. And even though there is no mandate right now, right? New hires still have to undergo that procedure. It's kind of a controversial thing, whatever. With this specific complaint, however, while they were actually working from home, they were mandated in order to get this procedure. And I believe she was pregnant at the time, so she felt that, or at least trying to get pregnant, she felt that this medical procedure might conflict with that in some way. That's how she felt. Not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that's how she felt. She went to HR about this, and they told her, maybe God has led you to a new career. When God closes a door, he opens another. That's what she was told.
That's unprofessional.
I agree. That's HR. Okay, and that's while Sonia was actually working there. So those kind of couple of stories coming out, whether it be the whistleblower from the Veritas report or this, it's very, very disturbing. Okay. And she was the head of HR at ESPN while this was going on. Again, I can only go by past, like you said, OG, past
to predict what might happen.
Yeah, exactly, to predict what might happen. Now, is she responsible for those things, like directly? Like, did she actually get those mandates out? Maybe not, but she led that division. So, when we're now going to take her with this very controversial role that she was maybe involved with just by proxy as part of the ESPN division, and now we're going to make her the chief human resources officer for the entire company, it gets me a little bit concerned. Now, there is maybe a white pill to go along with this. OG, do you want to go into that a little bit?
I do, but before I do, I will say this though. Okay, so no secret, I live in California, right? And I have a normal, regular 9-to-5 job. I'm not a full-time YouTuber at all. The reason why this whole HR thing doesn't really shock me, it's all the same stuff I'm seeing at my job. The mandates, we go through like probably every 2 weeks, diversity and inclusion training modules. This is California. You know what I'm saying? So yes, I get it. Like when people are like, oh my gosh, if maybe people from other states are looking at that going, oh, wow, that's really kind of out there, right? In California, I mean, it's pretty par for the course.
I don't disagree. But how many of your fellow colleagues are suing the company? That's a lawsuit.
That I don't know. I mean, they might be. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not privy to it, but
it's look, if you're head of HR, right, your job is to mitigate that kind of stuff and prevent it from getting to the lawsuit point. You don't want whistleblowers going to, Project Veritas or anybody else, right? That stuff shouldn't be happening, and yet that's what happened under her watch. So that's why I'm a little like, it's like it concerns me.
Absolutely, and rightfully so. I understand that, but also, do you think it's a little bit of like what company she works for? Like, for example, my company, there's nothing sexy about whistleblowing the company I work for. It's not going to get the headlines like a Disney or an ESPN. So I kind of see where that would be more attractive for someone with halls of Disney than say my organization.
Oh yeah, yes.
That attract more. I mean. But yeah, but I will say this though, I completely agree with you. The whole comment about like maybe God opens doors, whatever that was, not acceptable. That's not how they should have responded. Absolutely.
I don't necessarily disagree. And like I said, she was going for a religious exemption for that, which is why they turned the phrase like that. It was very, like you said, OG, very unprofessional. You have people, not just this whistleblower, but he's got people on camera saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going through the same thing right now." Just very disturbing. However, there might be a ray of sunshine in this story right here, because insider scooper Kamran Pasha is saying the exact opposite, which is very, very interesting. This is one, there's a little bit of conflict on this story, and it's going to be really interesting to follow to see how the company might evolve, for better or for worse, after this. So, OG, why don't you guys take us through this?
Yeah, this is from Kamran Pasha, and this guy, he's to give a little background if our audience isn't aware of Kamran. He's in the industry. He does a lot of scoops, what have you. He hears a lot of stuff.
I think he's a screenwriter, and he's doing a couple of shows right now for Hollywood and some various other places, right?
Exactly. So he's connected. He's in this world. He's been on Midnight's Edge. He's been on WDW Pro. He's been on Valiant Renegades channel. He's been around. We actually just reported on one of his scoops on Story Geeks just a week ago with the whole Lucasfilm thing and what have you. So
sure,
a little background on this guy before I kind of go on here. But he had something to say about this new pick for HR. And it says here, Coleman was previously head of HR at Disney Entertainment and ESPN and will now report directly to CEO Bob Iger. As I have been predicting and our Disney insiders have been revealing for months, Disney is revamping its HR system. And it's extremely smart. It's an extremely smart move to replace Richardson, who oversaw all the diversity. It's diversity.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
There you go. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sorry about that. I drew a blank on the E. Initiatives with an African-American woman, as Disney can continue dismantling the woke elements inside HR with someone whom woke activists will be afraid to attack directly on diversity grounds.
Yes. So to clarify, Sonia is of African-American descent from...
Yes.
We didn't mention it because normally not important, but for this story, it is.
Absolutely. And it says the black pills and the clickbaiters will continue to deny that Disney is changing, but the evidence is right before your eyes. Okay. And so this is very interesting because what do you guys think about this? He's saying that, like, look, they're bringing her in and they're kind of using it as like, cover, like they're almost using her as cover to basically like to make like the firings and this reorganization and to de-wokeify Disney to make it more okay because she's an African American or what have you. What do you think about that, George? What are your feelings on this?
So I'm going to try to work around my words here so it doesn't sound. So a lot of times people tend to use people in the industry, whether it's Disney, whether it's another company, whether it's actually even a commercial that is sponsoring like a certain type of brand of product. And they tend to use a specific diverse group of people and only those diverse people. And then they say, oh, but this is for everybody. It's for unification. Well, if you're going to mention of unification, then have a diversity of a bunch of different cultures, a bunch of different people, not just say it's one particular person. So to your question, do I feel that they could be saying, okay, we brought her in because of her ethnic background or what have you, and she could be the face that changes it all? That could be. I can't say yes or no that that's their main driven goal and that's their agenda. But I strongly say that if she is to do the job, it has nothing to do with her ethnic background. It has nothing to do with her skin color. It's she is qualified for the job and is doing the job correctly. And that's really what should be looked upon, rather than everyone putting a label on each person saying, because this person is white, black, yellow, red. It's like, it really shouldn't matter. And if why it keeps on being brought up, we're never going to get past it if people just keep on bringing it up.
That's true, but I mean, we just went over Dana Walden, for example, and how she's in the she's front of the pack, let's say, when it comes to potential CEO candidates for the Walt Disney Company. We just said it, George. Why? Because she's a woman.
She's a woman.
It's the head of HR.
Yeah, that's what it should. That's how it should be. Of what I just mentioned, that's what it should be. Is that Disney's driven goal? The rate that they're going,
it's all about optics.
Yeah,
and that's why these kind of decisions and who actually fill these roles and where they actually come from matters. Shouldn't, but it does. And that's just kind of the reality on the ground. I'm I agree with you, George. Racial thing doesn't matter. It doesn't. What Cameron's saying though is that for at least the stated goal that he posits here, that is of issue and is of consideration. The whole Iger thing, that he isn't woke and he isn't about these kind of causes. I think he just spoke recently, like 2 months ago, on some, I think, Second Amendment issues. And it was like, why are you making statements about that, Iger? Come on. Like, you're the CEO of the company now. Let's focus on Disney. But no, I mean, he was, making those comments and so forth. And it's just, to me, it's worrisome because I know, what Iger has done before. I know that he's kind of, been a key figure in starting us down this whole path. Now, there are a myriad of reasons as to why it all came together in the fashion that it did. Vanguard, BlackRock, the board, many, many factors at play there. But that's why I'm just kind of like, ooh, I know that, is Disney truly trying to change? Have we seen reflections of this? This might be one. And Cameron's reporting might be spot on here. But there's evidence to suggest that maybe it's not. And that's what kind of has me concerned.
And that's what I was mentioning, that it's hard to say at this point right now of which way it's going to go. I honestly think until we actually see her actually in the position and, seeing how she tackles certain
Issues.
situations. And yes, exactly.
Especially company policy and so forth.
Right, because when you're dealing with HR, you're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. So I mean, of how it is approached to her and how she handles that matter, only time will tell. And I think that's when the light will be shed, so to speak, of how Disney's main focus. Are they really focused on her talent, or are they focused on her?
Or maybe
appearance?
there's a separate agenda with her position. As Cameron has said,
Right.
or has posited, hey, she's being placed here for a reason, in order to actually moderate the company. And he cites that they did start at the DEI positions within the company in terms of layoffs. Right, we heard of the 7,000. Apparently, a lot of the people working in the DEI department of Disney, if you want to classify it that way, were let go. And
they were one of the first people to be let go, which is kind of shocked everybody.
It very much was shocking. Again, if you had, and we did stories, OG, about other companies who had did kind of the similar thing. The fact is those salaries were way too high versus the output that they were producing. All right. And it was just like, okay, we're going to make cuts. Here you go. So from that end, totally understand it. And you could use it as a justification. Is there a higher game being played here? It's very interesting what Cameron actually says here.
Well, yeah, and here's the other thing. We've seen instance after instance of Bob Iger sort of, in my opinion, putting the ideology to the side when it gets in the way of the money. And I'll give you a couple examples. Well, right now we just pointed one out. I mean, he is, clearly a progressive, but he had no problem letting the DEI people go first. And that surprised everybody that was it. Everyone thought when Chapek left and Iger was coming back, these departments were going to be ironclad safe. And not only were they not safe, as CEO, he signed off on them getting let go first. I mean, we saw it again with the marketing of films in China. The ideology goes out the window when it comes to making money in China. They will alter Black Panther posters, whatever they got to do, as problematic as it is to make money in China.
That's why it makes me wonder, in a sense, to me anyways, there's a difference between being woke and there's a difference between kind of kissing ass one way or the other for the business sake. And it actually seems like Iger can go both ways with that, where he has at times like woke-like tendencies, but it's like when push comes to shove, if it's not going to make him money or it's not going to help his legacy, he'll drop it like a bad hat.
Well, remember too, the mindset of all this stuff, when he was really pushing this stuff, he was also thinking about running for president. And that was the trend at the time, to be ultra progressive. Remember, in 2016, Iger was
BlackRock and Vanguard and all those people that were kind of pushing it as well. You had to, figure that as well.
Right. But in 2016, he wasn't a super progressive. He was fighting with Bernie Sanders all the time.
True.
It wasn't until, things were lined up where it was like suddenly convenient now to be woke, then he became really woke. But now he's dropping it like a hot potato when it's no longer convenient. Now we're hearing he's firing DEI. Now we're hearing he's moderating the company. Right here, he says, Cameron says, Iger isn't woke. As I have said many times, he is a politician who wants to be popular. When he thought woke would earn him political points, he allowed it. When it did the opposite, he quietly walked away. If he was a woke ideologue, he would never have brought in Jon Favreau and would have greenlit the Rian Johnson trilogy. You have thoughts on that, Dre? We talked about that on the phone. Go ahead and elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, with such a big Star Wars property and his legacy on the line there, Rian Johnson didn't sell. Rian Johnson, I mean, the drop off in revenue from Force Awakens to Last Jedi. Now, I understand there were factors at play there that weren't fully in Rian Johnson's control, but obviously Rian Johnson didn't make that much easier with how he dealt with the fans and so forth, and just made it very unpalatable for a certain point and from a certain position on the executive structure, when you're looking at kind of revenue generation and so forth, it's just like, ooh, do we necessarily want to go this direction? Probably not, because Last Jedi itself wasn't the most marketable film.
So it was kind of money over ideology again.
It was, but that's the confusing part about it, though. It's not like they dropped being a certain political persuasion just because they didn't go with Last Jedi. I mean, look, people are going to have thoughts about this one way or the other, but remember we had the first lesbian kiss, let's say, in Rise of Skywalker. Hey, that's cool, that's fun, but some people consider that woke, right? Some people consider some of the things that happened in later Star Wars elements, especially the with some of the stuff in the High Republic, stuff Aftermath and so forth, as woke or whatever. It's not like they stopped being. It's not like they stopped. What is it? Going in that direction. They did. I mean, look at Lightyear, right? Look at Look at Strange World, for example. That has a very climate-centric message and so forth. Not done very spectacularly well. Avatar does as well, but that's done much better, right? But Strange World kind of got lost and mired in that. So, and Iger has made statements even very recently saying, yeah, you know what? As a media company or as a company in general, you have to take a stand every once in a while, even though it might not make you the most popular company, might not make you the most popular people, and so forth, right? It's worth standing for what's right and wrong or whatever. He said that recently. I'm not saying that there's not a new charge to moderate the company right now. There very well could be. I just don't know if this particular move is a reflection of that. I'm not. Yeah. I'm really not sure. Like I said, guys,
that's fair.
If you want to look into it a little bit more, I'd implore you to look up that Project Veritas video, see it for yourself. Again, I understand. I get it. The reporting from Veritas is very controversial. I understand. Yeah. I got it. However, this is somebody coming with their footage. This is someone coming with what they brought to the table, not necessarily. Veritas was just the outlet in this case. Maybe I'll link you the video, and you can put it in the description if you want to, OG.
Absolutely.
You can have people look at it for yourself and make your own judgments on this. That's why I'm kind of conflicted on this story. It's just like there is hope on the horizon that it's like, okay, we've got to get back to celebrating everybody, right? Or as a wide a gamut as possible, bringing them back into the theater. Maybe don't make overt messaging that might push people away and so forth. A lot of that stuff, really exciting. We just haven't seen it yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's going to take time. And with any change, we didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of here overnight, It's going to be a process. And we've said it many times on the show. We're just now feeling the effects of John Lasseter leaving the company, and he left in 2018. So to give you an idea of how long it takes, even if they were to drop all the political stuff today, you're not going to see the fruits of that for 3-4 years, so
you're not. I mean, I think the animated films from Disney didn't even make it into the top 2 in terms of box office performance of the year. I think they were like 3 or 4 or whatever. We just saw they lost the Oscar of Best Animated Film to, I think, Pinocchio from Guillermo del Toro, which was extra hard for 2 reasons. One, they had just produced a Pinocchio film that didn't make that much traction, and then 2, they had Guillermo del Toro in the building to do Haunted Mansion, and that didn't happen. So it was like, oh, so come on, it's like. It's like they can't. Oh man, but it's just they're and then we see the streaming numbers are kind of shaky and stuff like that. Box office, we know about that. Other than Avatar, great performer, by the way. Don't take anything away from that. Just kind of a concerning time right now. Is all I'm saying. And
it is.
We've seen
maybe this is it.
We've seen a lot more better performances out of Disney each year, time and time again, and this year in particular was, I think, the lowest that the company has been in a long time when producing content.
Yeah. It's a rocky period, and there's no sugarcoating that. I mean, they're in a time right now where they really have to, they got to do something. They absolutely do. And it seems like they are. But the thing that's scary, though, is like you have, in the meantime, stuff that's already in the pipeline. It's kind of like the Warner Brothers problem. It's like Zazie comes in, he makes a lot of positive changes. He's getting the ship going in the right direction, but he's got a bunch of garbage left over from the last administration that now has to be released. So,
or not in the case of Batgirl.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, exactly.
You know, but that's a bold move, and I don't think they're going to be doing that. So expect more of those folks. Just it's if moderation is on the horizon, which I think it is, just because of the fiscal reality of the whole thing, it's going to take a while. But speaking of a future for Disney, as it relates to ESPN and Hulu in this instance, Financial Times just came out with this article. Disney debates future of Hulu and ESPN. Selling off streaming service or sports network would sharpen focus on super brands such as Marvel and Star Wars. So this article details, I guess they have an executive who is working in the industry in Hollywood. And he's kind of saying, hey, look, listen, might just be worth getting out of this. They actually say that rumors surrounding the streaming service and sports network assets potentially worth $40 billion get to the heart of a larger question. As Hollywood enters a more mature phase of the streaming era, what kind of company should Disney be? It's a very interesting thing because you can go two different ways with this, right? This is kind of how I see it. It's like we can hold on to these assets, turn them around, they can be producing money for us forever. Or we could sell them while they're valuable now and not risk not being able to turn these things around and not being nearly as valuable later. That's where we're at with these things. I think for ESPN, this is kind of just my thoughts on it real quickly. ESPN, I think, yes, it is very much a domestic brand, but sports, I think, is, it's been pretty good, and it's been kind of on the rise. It's had some low points and so forth, 2020 notwithstanding, right? But it is, it is a solid base of revenue, and that continues to grow. We've seen some ridiculously expensive deals from Amazon and YouTube, actually, in the NFL space, for example, right? I think it is a nice asset to have in the domestic market. The problem is it growing? We know that's not, right? We know that in 2013, I think it was in the 90s of millions in terms of subscribers. Now it's like in the 70s of millions in terms of subscribers, and it's going down every single day because people are cutting the cord, right? So I thought Chapek actually had a wonderful idea for this. It's like, hey, let's go into sports betting. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what people expect. That's what the, sports enthusiasts expect and so forth. I've even heard of an idea of ESPN kind of becoming like the modern TV guide, where if you go on ESPN Plus, for example, and if you want to watch a particular sports network, they can have a listing of all the networks that actually have that sporting event. And then you can kind of click on that, go through, and maybe you subscribe up, and then ESPN gets a take of that revenue. That from that subscription, what is it? Startup right there. So that's an idea, right? But if you're not going to go in either of those directions, and if you can't turn this around quickly, maybe it might be best to get rid of it. If you can't do what's necessary, that's the issue.
Yeah.
But I think personally, probably should keep ESPN.
I agree.
He's made the tranche for the company. I think that's a good one. Hulu, on the other hand, that's a whole different thing right there, right? Because Comcast has said multiple times, and actually they reiterate in this article that Brian Roberts is very much open to the idea of acquiring Hulu in totality. Remember, they have that 66%, 33% deal with Comcast right now for Hulu. Just sell them the remaining portion, which is worth about upwards of $20 billion, I believe. And then you get that revenue in there. Then you can license out that FX content. You can license out that Fox content that they acquired, right? And have that be a revenue stream rather than having to maintain an entire platform and have it be a revenue drain. That's kind of what I see there. I think you keep ESPN, but I think you might need to dump Hulu right now.
And then not even just license out FX and Fox, but also ask something a little bit more back off of Comcast. I don't know, say more of the licensing rights for Marvel.
Yeah, exactly, right? That's what I would do. That's what.
Yes.
If I were to do that, that's what I'd be getting back, at least with a nice, handsome cash payout as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, Brian Roberts, CEO of Comcast Universal, said he's interested. Now, interested in making it happen, two different things. Brian Roberts is a very savvy guy. Okay, he's a very savvy guy. These two guys, and so is Bob Iger. You know, these two guys getting in the ring together, it's going to be tough. I think coming to a deal. I think that these two guys do not like each other, from what we hear in the trades and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to try to one up and screw each other over every step of the way along this whole process.
Mm-hmm.
If I was Bob Iger, I would be on your P's and Q's. I'm sure he will be, but you got to be on your P's and Q's with this guy because he's not a dummy. Brian Roberts is not a dummy, you know?
He's not a dummy. And look at this. Look at this right here. I saw this in the article right here. All services saw a surge in subscribers at the end of 2022. Look at that Peacock, getting up there in terms of signups for the quarter right there. That's something right there. That's didn't expect that. But they've been kind of rounding out their content repository. People are signing up, so that's an interesting thing right there. But yeah, I mean it's a very tight market as well. Remember ad revenues and so forth. Disney is an ad, an ad generated business or an ad revenue type business. And so, yeah, it's, as we kind of get to this kind of downturn in the economy, who's going to be advertising, who are going to be, paying the big dollars to actually be advertised on any given platform? Do you necessarily want to have that baggage with another streaming service, or do you just want to keep a Disney core with Disney Plus? That's kind of decisions that are being weighed out right now. But you're right, OG. He is savvy, and Brian Roberts right there. If it was for sale, Comcast would be interested.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, and there's a deadline on this as well. Remember, 2024. That's when decisions need to be made.
Another thing to consider too here is that Hulu and the content on Hulu is for the most part not very family friendly. I mean, I understand there are family friendly things on there like Animaniacs and stuff like that, but by and large, you have a lot of stuff on there that's not for families. Okay,
it would benefit more Comcast than it would Disney.
Well, yes. Well, it would, and we have to also have to keep in mind that Bob Iger is very brand conscious. We just talked about him not wanting to do the sports betting with ESPN, so I can see it being very attractive for a Bob Iger to sort of distance themselves from Hulu a little bit while still making money off of Hulu. But from the brand optics, you're not as tied to Hulu and a lot of the really kind of adult orientated content. Yes, nerds like us know they own it. But from a normie perspective, there's that distance as opposed to right now, it's part of the Disney bundle. I mean, and then you have shows like Handmaid's Tale and Family Guy on there. Brand wise, it's not the best option.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff, right, that is not necessarily historically been associated with the mouse. They treat Hulu as kind of like the modern Touchstone or the modern Miramax or something. There's this kind of like, there's that distance there, which I mean, the ARPU has been very, very nice for Disney, especially as it compares to Disney Plus and so forth. But again, it's still, these things aren't profitable, and it's like, but it's an asset that is worth something right now. So it's like, well, do we want to, sell our remaining stake? I'm trying to remember how much they think it's worth. I think they valued recently, Comcast's stake in it at about $10 billion or so. So you're talking about like $20 billion for Disney, right? If they were to sell it, I think their debt, I know it started at about $48 billion. They've kind of gotten that down. I mean, you're pretty close to eliminating your debt just with that one sale if you want to do just a straight up cash swap. Yes. I wouldn't do that. I get those Marvel rights back, maybe shed off a couple billion from that deal right there. And that way, now you have a very advantageous deal, let's say, being negotiated right there. Yeah, that's what they're going to have to evaluate. The long-term potential of Hulu worth more than the revenue they would get right now, and that they kind of need. That's where they're at. And I don't envy Iger's position. If I were him, maybe that's the route to go. And now you have a licensee that you can partner with in perpetuity.
No, exactly. You have a partner now in Comcast where like, look, up front, you make the $20 billion or whatever it is on the sale, But then it's long term. You're making all those licensing fees from all the content that Disney has on that platform. So it's kind of a win-win all around for really kind of both parties. And let's be honest, I think Comcast, while Peacock is making great strides, no doubt, they have a pretty minimal footprint in the streaming space. They could use a Hulu.
Yeah,
way behind.
It's way behind.
Hulu would pretty much overnight make them one of the top 3 contenders in that space. So I can see why that would be attractive.
The ARPU, I'm telling you, the average revenue per user, it's the envy of the streaming world. So, I think this is a story worth watching. It's going to be a fascinating story. And it's also going to be indicative of maybe their future strategy here. We've heard rumblings that Iger's not necessarily wanting to engage in an all-out streaming war with Netflix, partially just because they can't afford it. There's just, you can't have, I think they just had Willow be canceled after 1 season,
and deservedly so. It was not a good show. It was not.
But they spent so much money on it, and that's what Iger's talking about. It's like, guys, we got to really kind of rein this stuff in here. We got to be really choosy with what we do. But if you are, then you just can't match the output of Netflix. So it's like, does it make sense to be at full war with them, or can we kind of carve out our own niche here? And if we can, do we need Hulu to do that? See, that's a big thing. So I think this is definitely a story to watch in the coming days.
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be if Comcast is the potential buyer, there's going to be fireworks. Oh my gosh. I don't know if you all remember, but the fireworks that went on between Bob Iger and Brian Roberts when the whole Fox thing was going on.
Oh yeah.
And some say, and honestly, some say Brian Roberts won that. I'm not so sure though. They just had to write down, I think it was $9 billion off of the Sky purchase. That was part of that Fox thing. Comcast acquired Sky, and that has not been successful for them at all. But then again, Bob Iger overpaid for the studio. I think they both kind of got fleeced a little bit on that deal to some degree.
And then Iger, the company will say, well, did you want to have all those assets fall into the hands of a competitor? And it's like, maybe, if you can't capitalize on it effectively. But now that it is here, you got to make the most of it. And you have a $20 billion asset that you can actually work with.
Yes, and what he should have done, there is a case to be made about, like, do you really want Comcast to own the X-Men rights for films, and do you really want them to own, I think there was even like A New Hope, I believe was in that Fox thing as well,
yes,
and yeah, I could see the case be made. Like, does Disney really want like Comcast to own those properties that are so vital to Disney's branding?
Yeah, Star Wars and Marvel, they're really doing really well now. So you're right about that.
But you know what I'm saying?
I get you. I'm joshing you.
But what they should have done though is they should have bought it, and then they could have sold off. You buy the whole pie and then you sell off the stuff you don't need. And they kept a lot of stuff that they really don't need. Do you really need Die Hard in your library, Disney? Does that really matter that much? Alien,
Home Alone.
It just, this stuff is like, you can't use them in your parks. You can't, it's just kind of like, why?
And honestly, they have one shot to do this right. Mm-hmm. If and when this deal does come to light between Disney and Comcast, Disney has to set up their ducks in a row to make sure that the ball is in their court at the end when they dot the I's and crosses the T's, because one little false move of saying, we'll sell Hulu, but not even really think to say, we'll get more of those Marvel rights back into the parks. Everything has to be lined up correctly.
Yeah. And I know we talked about how that might relate to other streaming services and studios and so forth. There's some stuff in here that you can really kind of, because I think we were going like, hey, could Six Flags, Salim Basul over there, he needs an inflow of cash, right? Could he sell the Warner Brothers, and Looney Tune rights for their theme park attractions? Could they sell that to Comcast?
I do think it'll be a domino effect. If this goes through, I think other companies are going to look into, swapping and trading and payouts.
If you got assets, there's not going to be a lot of capital to go around here, and we saw the Dow Jones today. It's not good. It's you know what? We'll just keep CNBC off TV for a while. That's kind of it's one of those days. So, this is a very fascinating thing here for sure. This is definitely something to watch. You could see a lot of potential moves here with this deal, and don't expect like a straight swap. Expect licenses. Expect an ongoing relationship here, and that could be one that could be very profitable for Disney in the short term and long term.
Yep,
and honestly, it's a huge risk. I mean, to take any kind of property or project and expect it to be this major, awesome thing, and it turns to be a complete
That's why they want to get out, because it's like, they're in an arms race and they have thrown a lot of stuff at the wall that hasn't stuck. So that's the scary part.
And speaking of shithole OG, if you want to take over from there.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. Okay.
Yes, folks, we only have high-class stuff on this show.
All right. So we are going to talk a little Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Go ahead and share your screen. Wow, George.
Yes.
You're going to get us canceled, George. You're going to get us canceled.
The jumping off point for that is, it's a video that Disney Parks wanted to provide all of us on their progress of Tiana's Bayou Adventure. So, well, you can kind of guess, but what do you expect us to find them? Well, again, in New Orleans. So here we go.
Hello, I am Sharita Carter. I'm the executive creative producer for Tiana's Bayou Adventure. We're here taking in the color, the energy, the love, the rhythm, the music, everything that Mardi Gras has to offer the celebration. After all, Tiana is throwing a one-of-a-kind Mardi Gras party, and everybody is invited.
Okay, can we pause it real quick?
Gives us an
Sure.
This is the kind of stuff. Look, and here's the thing. Okay, I've been one of the more I don't want to say positive people on this attraction, because I have my doubts too, right?
Cautiously optimistic?
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm very much open-minded. I'm willing to see how this ends up, right? Because look, on both sides, you got people on the right saying this thing is a foregone conclusion, going to suck. You got people on the left saying foregone conclusion, it's going to be the best thing ever. I'm not there on either side. I'm kind of in that middle where it's like, okay, there's potential here. It's all about execution. Let's see how it works out. But what I will say though, Disney is really, really not doing themselves any favors when they are not. Look, it looks like they don't have anything.
Yes.
Why every time do we hear about this ride? It's about stuff that has nothing to do about the actual ride. I get it. You guys went to New Orleans to research stuff. We get it.
Oh,
every video is about the research and the field trip. Can we get an animatronic? Can you show us
not
a
the field trip, the field trips. They keep going back to New Orleans all the time. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy. And look, I get it. I appreciate the dedication to authenticity. I love all that. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to show us something of the actual attraction. Can we get something like anything, like a CGI, whatever early thing of like one of the show scenes? Can we see some? Look, they talked about in one of these articles about this new technology they have where the projections have depth and what have you, like the backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's this new tech that they're trying to roll out for this attraction. Can we see some of that maybe? Why don't you give us something? I don't care about her field trips anymore. I'm tired
because they don't have it, OG. They're too busy flinging beads. It's like it's like it's almost like they're still stalling time because there's nothing actually put together for this thing. And yet they're still showing us the same concept art day in and day out, where when we saw a peek behind the Beauty and the Beast attraction over in Tokyo, they showed us the animatronic beast. They showed us the animatronic Belle. And I mean, it was like after 3 years, there's nothing more than this.
Even with Avengers Campus, leading up to Avengers Campus, we got video of the Spider-Man Stuntronic. There were tidbits here and there getting released. Even with Galaxy's Edge, we got little pieces of information along the way. There's been nothing. This is stuff. The New Orleans stuff is great. 3 years ago when you were just on like the early stages. You obviously have stuff fabricated, prefabricated, and completed because you're installing it over
or
Walt
honestly,
Disney
no.
World.
I'll take it one step further than that, OG. If they didn't even have to go to New Orleans, honestly, all they would have had to do was go to a local Walmart or purchase Disney Plus, which I'm for sure they all get free. Put on The Princess and the Frog. And take some inspiration off of that. I don't understand what the lengthy history, which don't get me wrong, the history of New Orleans is quite fascinating.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But you don't need it for this type of attraction if you're basing it off of a Disney animated film that's already pre-made for you. Which again, they're not basing it off the film, which
we just had a show. We just made an appearance on the show, me and you, OG, on Lorena's channel. Right?
And big shout out to Lorena, by the way. She's always a really gracious host, a really lovely lady. Check her out on YouTube. She's phenomenal. But go ahead. I just want to add that
fantastic. And during the, relatively at the end of that discussion, we had on a person that we love as well, Theme Park Wizard, right? And he was on there, and he was very, very enthusiastic, I want to say, about Bob Iger's comments regarding Avatar, to the extent that he was maybe a little bit frustrated with how, he talks about it, but hasn't actually given detail or hasn't given provided us an insight into that attraction. I get it, we're all kind of excited, but they do use this kind of vague language, and we still don't know what it's actually going to be, right? I kind of understand right there. This is that. We keep getting the same art. We keep getting the same things. We just got the model of the exterior, which is, nice to have, but it's basically Splash Mountain.
Minus Chickapin Hill.
Yeah, minus Chickapin Hill and add in a water tower with a big tiara on it. It's like, okay, well, we still haven't really kind of seen anything yet, right?
No, we haven't.
And it's just, there's nothing really to get excited about. And then this is like a year and a half away now. Like we're opening according to their date, and they reiterate at the end of this video, and I'll go ahead and continue to play it. Why are we still doing research trips? Like this is Mardi Gras. I think this is taken this year. The attraction is down right now in Walt Disney World. Everything's being cut up. We're working on it. We have an attraction that hasn't even gone down Splash Mountain at Disneyland. Why aren't we on site with these things and getting them ready and doing why are we going and taking research trips? Research trips are for development of a project, not when you're actively, working on it right now. You should have the whole thing modeled out. You don't need to go on research trips. What is this? Well,
they don't need to. I think, in my opinion, the whole field trip thing is to say, look how authentic we are. It's kind of an optics thing more than anything. They clearly have stuff if it's already being dug up.
I don't know. I think honestly, they're building as they're going. Honestly, I think they're piecing. I think honestly, it's like cut and paste at this point.
I don't think they're doing. You can't seriously dig into an attraction without having blueprints.
Well, OG, do you know what Trina Carter's background is? Accounting, right? Yeah, she was an accountant for years. She went to school for it and so forth, and then she actually applied to Imagineering because it was across the street from her firm. She just applied there, and she got in. And now, do you know her projects before then? Because she was still part of the accounting department. She's still part of some restructuring projects, some development projects, but she never really led a project up until, do you know when?
Well, Mickey Minnie Runaway Railway, but I think that was also a Kevin Rafferty project.
It was a Kevin Rafferty project that she kind of rode the coattails on, and now she gets all the credit for it. Right. Which, she was a big part of that attraction, so I guess rightfully so, but she didn't really necessarily lead the team on that until very, very late. Before then, she was leading the team for projection mapping, the Mara scene. in Indiana Jones Adventure. That was like our first project right there, where his or their I guess face changes in the various rooms right there.
Which to be fair to her, that was one of the coolest new things we've gotten in Indy for a long time.
Hey, I was very complimentary at the time. I thought this was a real home winner. That's great. Mickey Mouse Runaway Railway, great project, but this is of an entirely different scale.
Yeah. And
it's not just one attraction, it's two, because these are built very, very differently. They had very, very show scenes. How they were laid out, how were they, done was very, very different. Okay. This is the biggest project that she's ever had.
Absolutely.
We know that there's going to be some projections utilized in this. I'm sure, right? There's going to be some depth and stuff like you mentioned, OG. But her lack of expertise in this field really, really kind of gets me concerned, because this is not somebody who has been. Look, Splash Mountain's a beloved attraction. Okay, people have very fond memories of this. They want to see something that really does exceed their expectation, and we have seen nothing as of yet that instills any amount of confidence whatsoever.
And that's the problem.
Go back to the expo. From the expo of September to now we are in March. We have literally went from that gap amount of time of mist and fog and lighting to them being back in New Orleans showing the same concept art. That's literally that whole time frame, nothing else.
It's frustrating.
Why are they on a research trip? You should be done. This should be, like you said, fabricated. Should be prefab, should be install. Why are you going to New Orleans this late in the game?
Well, because that's why I don't think it's a real research trip. That's my whole point. I think it's just. I just think it's for the
wasting
video.
Company money. Wasting company money.
I think so. I don't think this is a real research trip.
I will say this. Either way, I still think it's a cut and paste project. They're going along, but even if it isn't, and it is what you think it is, OG,
promotional.
It's exactly either way. Either way, it's effed up either way because they're wasting time.
No, they are. They're absolutely wasting time.
Either way,
they need to show us something, and that's the thing that's frustrating. Look, I think that. Gosh, all it takes is they keep saying this is going to be one of the most innovative AAs of Tiana, right? We keep hearing rumors it's going to be like the Belle from Tokyo. If that's the case, which I think it probably will be, bring her out. Let's see that animatronic a little bit. Let's get fans excited about the attraction. This is stupid. This is all fluff. This means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
We'll play it. I have thoughts. We'll play it.
Absolutely.
Here.
No, yeah.
It's invited.
Being here gives us an opportunity to weave into our project that sense of celebration that comes with Mardi Gras. Because Mardi Gras is
nothing. Zero, nada in that whole clip.
It's just I'm not nothing. And apparently, well, I will say this. You say about promotion, OG. You could be right actually, because the comments are littered with people who hadn't previously seen the concept art regarding the exterior and some of the things that were presented at D23 Expo. They hadn't seen it. The comments are still on, folks. Well, the ratio, but the comments are still on. They're brutal. If anybody wants to get a good laugh, go to these comments. I mean, they're filled with people who are not excited for this.
Look at even the thumbs up to the opposite of the thumbs down.
Now the ratio.
That's the ratio.
381 up, 1,000 down. This is tough. This is you're talking about a beloved attraction. You're talking about something that is something that people have very fond memories of, and their expectations are high. It's unfortunate because they hyped up, and here even Cafe Fantasia, if I'm not mistaken,
I think he's a friend of the channel, actually.
yeah,
I don't know if
friend
it's
of
the
the
same. I don't know if it's the same guy, but
I think it is.
I think so.
I think it is.
Yeah.
It says the original 2020 concept art compared to 109.
Balance and discipline.
Right there. With Mama Odie's boat perched in a giant tree on top of Splash Mountain looked far more ambitious and interesting. It's kind of unfortunate because people had it in their minds they were going to get something. And what I've noticed, this is interesting, the people who don't really know much about this are excited. The people who know more about this are not. There seems to be a direct correlation with the more you know, the more you're kind of uninterested. And that's a really kind of unfortunate thing.
Yeah. No, there's issues. There's absolutely issues, and I think also the tree thing was way cooler looking. From what I understand, it was a weight issue. They'd have to redo the whole mountain pretty much to get that thing on there.
Yeah.
I get that. But surely surely there's a creative way to add some sort of cool icon on the top that is more cost effective or doesn't involve bulldozing the whole mountain and rebuilding it. Surely there's something you can put on there that would kind of give it a little bit of a skyline.
Well, and honestly, minus the water tower. By the way, OG, don't call me Shirley.
Airplane reference. Nice.
There you go.
This actually kind of reminds me of like the way that the mountain is kind of designed with the water drop, and then minus the mill and everything, but just like the greenery and everything. What this reminds me of is not actually Princess and the Frog. It reminds me of the Timon and Pumbaa sequence of Hakuna Matata.
Actually, you're right. Very Lion King. Can you feel the love tonight kind of energy? I think also.
I've heard a reason as to why they didn't go with with anything at the top. This is very interesting. The water tower and the trees are supposed to be oversized in order to make the mountain look smaller. And one of the reasons why they got rid of anything on top was because it was contributing to that scale that they didn't want to actually have in. They're trying to downplay the drop in order to get as many people on there. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm not necessarily seeing how they're going to do that. It's still a 52-foot drop or whatever. It was the steepest and tallest when it actually came out. It's still very steep and tall today.
Are they downplaying the drop to make it look more like isn't it supposed to be a salt mine?
It's supposed to be, it's supposed to be a salt mine. And it's supposed to look smaller in order to be consistent with the Louisiana Bayou.
Right. Yeah.
Which
now when
that's not the best move either.
The storyline is Mama Odie still incorporated in this new storyline?
Yes, Mama Odie is. She has a segment where when you're going up, you're actually looking like in the interior of Mama Odie's boat or whatever, because with the bottles that are colored and so forth, they're supposed to be illuminated as you're going up. We saw that in the model, and they confirmed that.
And they also made the announcement of the voice actors returning, and Jennifer Lewis was returning.
I think so. Don't quote me on that.
Now, I will say this. This is kind of my overall expectation with this attraction, and I could be completely off base, but a friend of the channel, Master Gracie, said it today on Twitter. He said, this thing is not going to be a disaster, but it's also not going to be anything amazing. He was likening it to the Frozen Ever After retheme of Maelstrom at Epcot. And I would have to agree with him on this. I think that that's what we're going to get, something along those lines. Now, that's in terms of the actual presentation and the quality of the product. I think it'll be on par with Frozen Ever After. That's great and all. That's doable. That's passable. Fine. The problem with that, though, is Frozen Ever After solved a problem. You have Maelstrom, which, let's be honest, it's not exactly a kid favorite, right? A lot of history of Norway and all that stuff. Like, families aren't rushing to get on that thing like they would a Frozen with Elsa and Anna. So when they added Frozen into the equation, it added capacity. And Dre's talked about this before. Demand equals capacity. So if you're filtering more people through this attraction than before, that's great for the park. This isn't going to do that. I don't think that adding Tiana to an already massively popular e-ticket, which is Splash Mountain, is going to necessarily bring more people onto Splash Mountain. Maybe initially the curiosity factor, but long term, I think it's really going to be kind of a wash, and maybe even less. Who knows? It depends on how it's received. I don't know. What's the benefit here exactly?
I think honestly, people that were to get in the line to ride this attraction is just more for the ride itself of it being a long log flume attraction. I really can't foresee
people caring.
People even caring of what this backstory is of Tiana and her business and involving herself in the salt mines and what have you. I don't see it.
And that's scary because then you have a population of the normies who will just consume this and they'll wait in 2-hour lines and give Disney the perception that this is a massive hit. And we get
because of that, yeah.
They look at those surveys, though. They're privy to those surveys, and we aren't. Trust me, they'll know. They'll know. Even if it, because you can have massive hits for massive lines for things, doesn't necessarily mean it's a success, and Disney knows that. So I get it. I understand, and people are going to be wanting to get in this ride. Like it's going to have a line. There's no way around that. But I sense a couple of things that might not go over well. One, the storyline. Because it doesn't necessarily interact with Pinches and the Frog in the way that I think people expect, that might let them down just on that. Two, because that storyline, you're going to have the characters, many of the characters that were featured in the original just aren't going to be represented here. That also might be a thing worth looking out for. And number three, Frozen Ever After doesn't have a height requirement. This does. It's 40 inches. That's a lot. And so when you talk about appealing to a demo of little girls that want to actually see Tiana, it's a princess ride. They see the tiara, they want to go on, and they can't actually go on. That might be an issue as well. And here's something more to note here. If you want to share my screen just real fast, OG.
Sure. Real quick, though, about the height requirement. And I brought this up on Twitter, but I haven't done it on a video yet, so I'll bring it up. Mine Train also has a very similar height requirement, and I understand that's geared more towards little boys, but it's the same kind of issue. Your theme is geared towards little kids, but there's a height requirement. So I'm not sure this is much different than that. Yeah, in Tiana, you're disappointing little girls. In Mine Train, you're disappointing little boys.
Hey, little boys at that age are taller than little girls at that age, right? So even in that one, I got you there.
Oh, there you go. They're taller.
But no, it's the branding, right? Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is not billed as a princess attraction. It's billed as something else entirely. This is a princess attraction. You have the tiara right up there. So that's kind of the thing I worry about. Now, this would have been great had they made like a little Tiana area, right, where they actually redo Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh and make that kind of a Princess and the Frog dark ride for people who still wanted to see Tiana but actually couldn't actually go on Splash Mountain. You could have done that. You could have had a little New Orleans section redone of those facades in the back there, made those shops in there. Now you have like a little almost New Orleans extension back there. You could have made Tiana's Palace and into Hungry Bear, and you've done all that, would have been fine. They didn't. So that's that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch too. But I wanted to bring your attention to this. This was written March 8th, 2022. All new Splash Mountain Get Wet Max version sailing July 1st through August 31st. Now remember, around that time, Disney was hyping Tiana's Bayou Adventure. What is the Oriental Land Company doing with their version of Splash Mountain in Tokyo? Hey, go on Splash Mountain and get even wetter. They were hyping up Splash Mountain at that time. And the reason I'm going to do that, bring that up, is because from what I understand, from what I'm hearing, now I just did a video with Pro with this, and it hasn't been uploaded yet. Ethan from Theme Park Wizard is also on there, so you definitely want to check that out, folks, to get some more information on this. But apparently, the Disney company has been pitching OLC the idea of redoing their Splash Mountain as well. They want to get rid of it. They want to eradicate this once and for all. This is why it doesn't make sense from an operations standpoint, but it does make sense from a philosophical, ideological standpoint, right? They want to get rid of this attraction entirely. They want to get rid of the song entirely. They want to just scrub their hands of it, and that's it, right? And they've been pitching OLC, change your Splash Mountain. They've been saying no. Well, very recently, from what I understand, Disney came back with a pitch. They came back with all the stuff that they have for Tiana's Bayou Adventure, featuring all the artwork and everything that they have, a lot of stuff that we haven't been privy to, right? And they said, we're not only going to theme it to this, but we'll take on the majority of the costs to do it. LLC, you'd think they'd jump at the chance. They said no again.
Well, because this attraction, it was very clear in the beginning this attraction is being done for social justice or cultural reasons, right? The cultural issues here in America don't exist in Japan. Yes. And like I said, it doesn't move the needle with capacity. So it doesn't. I can understand Japan going, well, it's kind of not necessary for us. See, that's where I disagree. I don't necessarily think they now look, they could have denied it because they weren't impressed. That's totally fair. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think it's automatically that. Like, I don't think it's, oh, well, it must be garbage because they said no. I think there's a lot of factors in these things more than just, oh, well, if it looks good, we'll just do it. I mean, I think that, they factor in the cultural thing. It's not as relevant of an issue there.
OLC's very picky, though. They're very picky.
Yeah, well, and does Tiana merch sell in Japan? All these factors come into play here, and I think that, look, I don't know for sure why they denied it.
Hey, look, if it was stellar, if it was amazing, because hey, they were all about Charita Carter's previous project in the form of Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. When WDI presented it to them and said, "Hey, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, you want one?" They're like, "Yes, absolutely, we do." And so they're going to be integrating some of that technology into Fantasy and some other places, right? They were all about that. They were like, "Hey, we're gung ho, we want that." You would have thought that if there was something that would blow the doors off of Oriental Land Company executives, which has been done before. They really have stunned them. Even though the story and things didn't match up, it was like, this is going to blow our audience away. Let's do it. If there was something worth buying, they would have. There isn't.
Oh yeah, no. And I'll tell you right now, there's nothing in there mind blowing.
And they even denied for Disney to even pay for it.
Well, and here's the thing: there's nothing mind blowing because I'm comparing this to Frozen Ever After, which is another mind blowing thing. I think it's going to be that.
But it can't be, though. This is a big attraction. This is arguably, Disney Glimpses even said it to us in private. He's like, this is probably one of the most popular attractions in all of Walt Disney World. It can't be just Frozen Ever After.
Well, and because with Frozen Ever After taking over Maelstrom was a very short-timed ride. So basically what they did with Frozen Ever After is rather than just pick certain elements and scenes that are more popular, they just kind of threw the characters in this headspace that, throw some music, some song, and that was enough. But when you take...
Because I think Frozen's a stronger franchise. That's
correct. So when you take a less popular franchise, but you're going to throw it in an attraction that... What was the ride time for Splash? 11 minutes altogether.
Yeah, it was like 11 minutes or something.
That storyline has to carry all the way through from beginning to end, and I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, well, my problem is the storyline. I wish they would get rid of the storyline and just have visuals from the movie. I think that would be fine.
Yeah,
that's your best. That was your best.
That's why I wish it would be more like Frozen Ever After. If they were to literally just take the characters, add the music, and just put scene after scene after scene, I would have rather taken that.
That was the best chance this ever had was doing something that really embraced Princess and the Frog a lot, right? Give us Dr. Facilier, give us Ray, give us the, all of that stuff that was so iconic from the actual film. They're not. That's kind of the big risky thing here. And here's another thing that we can update our viewers on right here. Now, OG, I know you have said that there might be some interplay between Tiana, Disney's upcoming Tiana show, and the upcoming Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and I do think you are correct. If that's the case, I don't know what this says about it either. Update, Disney Plus Tiana series release window has been changed. This comes from Walt Disney World News Today. Walt Disney Animation Studios has updated the release date for Tiana series on Disney Plus to an unknown future date. Now, apparently, this was going to originally be 2023, then it was going to be 2024. Now it has no known release date. It appears that the Walt Disney Animation Studios has quietly updated their website and removed the original release date of 2023. And the website now says, coming soon to Disney Plus.
Because now they're still waiting on to see what the storyline is for the attraction. They literally have nothing on to go for.
Maybe, or maybe that's why they have nothing for the attraction, is they're waiting on a storyline for this.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
I mean, who knows?
That
And
is
I
true.
wouldn't be surprised if they cut this. They're looking in all different ways to cut at, especially the streaming service, right now.
Yeah.
And it has no release date. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in what they call like production hell, purgatory kind of thing. Where
Well, and you have to think
never
even the
gets made.
storyline behind what Bayou Adventure is all about. If you now then incorporate that on a series that's attached to a streaming service that's already showing low numbers, then I mean, what is the controversy that's going to bring of even why they won't even put Song of the South on?
Yeah.
They're saying that the series is being written and directed by Stella Maggie, I believe, and I guess she's now been added to the team that will be directing several episodes of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, or the Wonder Man, okay, so a series with Wonder Man, with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings director Destin Daniel. Okay, so that was the thing right there. So Maggie's been added on that. If she's going to be writing and directing this, that's weird. That's kind of strange how she's now working on other projects while this is supposedly coming out in 3 years or something.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds like it's in production limbo right now.
I agree with you. I agree with that. I think this isn't going to come out. So now we're going to have less of a tie-in for this attraction that's supposed to be a second or next chapter story or whatever. I don't know, guys. I just haven't been encouraged yet for this attraction.
I
Everything I
haven't.
hear, it just makes me less and less enthusiastic.
Yeah.
For it.
And it's Disney's own fault with this, because I think they have stuff. They have something they can show us. I think I really do believe that. And for them not for them to put the promotional field trip stuff out there instead and think like that's what fans want to see. Fans don't care about that. We know you're going for authenticity. Show us the animatronic. Show us Imagineers working on the inside or something. Give us a show scene. Give us something.
I somewhat agree with you, OG, on that notion. I do feel like that they have the Tiana animatronic ready, because with the short amount of time that it has to open,
yeah,
that has to be rare and ready to go. As far as the story scenes go, that's where I feel like it's cut and paste, because every single concept art that they showed us, it's only based off of one scene. And that attraction is 11 minutes long. So what the hell were they putting else in those other show scenes? Is it going to be like one of those Flintstone episodes where you just go past and it's the same thing over and over again? And you see building, rocks, building, rocks, building, rocks. It's like...
Well, now a wild card in the whole thing. I don't know if it's too late for Florida, but Bruce Vaughn is coming back. They haven't closed our Splash Mountain down here in California. So is he going to go in there and make changes to California's?
I think...
Could the whole thing kind of be on delay? Not when I say delay, I mean like that tug of war back and forth, because we don't know what's going on internally in meetings. Is he kind of halting, saying, you know what, this may have to be changed. You're going to have to change this scene. This can't go. I would add more of this, and that's what they're not showing us, because anything that they were to show us, it could be scrapped the next day.
Yeah, and here's the thing: if anyone is watching, you're better off delaying, and you're better off getting it done right the first time. It'll be less expensive to do it that way. If you open this thing and it's disappointing and the surveys come out like Dre says and everyone hates it, then you got to go back and redo what you already did. It's more expensive. Take the lesson from DCA 1.0. Take the lesson from the horrible Walt Disney Studios park in Paris. Get it done right the first time. It'll cost you less.
Yeah. And close it off for, this arbitrary 2024 deadline. Just push it off. People want a great product at the end of the day.
Right.
They want the best attraction they can possibly have. I know Walt Disney World's going to suffer. Magic Kingdom especially is going to suffer for that, because with this big attraction down, that means less attractions can go down for maintenance and so forth. It's going to be tough, right? It's not going to be easy. We want the best product possible. Okay, there is a way in which this can work. Right now, I'm not necessarily in the camp where it's working out too well,
Yeah.
but it can. Disney, reevaluate, rethink the storyline. Watch the movie again, like George said. Watch the movie again. Scenes will slot in naturally, right? There's no reason to overthink this. Get it right. But
because they're so
sorry. Oh,
go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry, George.
No. One element that they could utilize of what they use in the Beauty and the Beast attraction at Tokyo, when you see the Beast transforming back into the prince, that effect is mind blowing. What better way?
This is post transformation, though.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But if they that's what I'm saying. If they were to have used the storyline, how kick-ass would that have been to show them as the frogs and then transform them back into humans by using that same technology?
I know. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. But they're so worried about, and this is the other thing. Like, I'm a stickler for theming and whatever, but sometimes you have to like sort of sacrifice certain things for the betterment of the overall project, right? They're so worried about people realizing there's no mountains in Louisiana that they're putting themselves in all these story knots and all these visual, like what you said, Dre. They're building the water tower and the big trees to minimize the thing so it doesn't look as big. All this stuff, all this expensive stuff, by the way, right? So they get around the fact that Louisiana doesn't have mountains. It doesn't matter to Disney. Most normies aren't going to realize that. Okay, they don't really give a shit. Have the mountain, okay? Have the mountain, and just put the movie stuff in the mountain. That's all you have to do. It's very, very easy. Stop rearranging everything to make it look more authentic when most normies aren't even thinking about that in the first place. It's ridiculous. I don't know. It's frustrating, to say the least.
It's discouraging. It's just this stuff is discouraging. But you know what is encouraging? Indiana Jones Adventure may be opening on March 17th, this Friday. So, hey, my chat's running with it. They've had some pretty good, info in the past, and it looks like Indiana Jones Adventure, the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, will be opening again after a very lengthy refurbishment that, from what I understand, was pretty involved. This was supposed to be, this was based on the original refurbishment that they were going to do right before the events of 2020. So it is pretty extensive. And if you guys remember, that was the one post-Rise, right? That was the one that we can finally take down and e-ticket like Indiana Jones, get it up and running, get it up to snuff, and then relaunch it with a refurb and have it live up to the great e-ticket attractions that it surrounds. This is a good development. We've also heard, by the way, that there are effects that weren't working when this actually went down that have been restored and are in working condition right now, which is very, very encouraging news. That is something that a lot of fans have wanted for a while, right? We talked about how this attraction can be plussed via, several effects that, hey, maybe that have gone defunct and could be made better now. With modern technologies and so forth. We just talked about Tarita Carter and how one of her first projects was actually adding that projection mapping to Mara's face, for example. So this is really, really, really encouraging, guys. What are your thoughts?
I'm very encouraged. We've been hearing some good stuff from our source about certain things on this, and I think the attraction will come back looking better than it has in a long time, and deservedly so. This is one of Disneyland's treasures. This is the modern equivalent of Pirates of the Caribbean, in my opinion. This is an absolute marvel of Imagineering. It'll be great to go through this again and actually have it shine with all its glorious epicness.
Yeah, I've also heard that the disability access procedures for this have been modified in order to make it a little bit more accommodating. It's been tough for this attraction as of late, especially as it relates to Lightning Lane. Right, the mix-in point is very, very early, which is very kind of rare for a modern attraction, especially one of this scale to actually do. Maybe that has been adjusted and so forth. So I think operationally this will work out much, much better. But the show itself, I have heard that it is much improved from before. Not major substantial, additions, right? I'm not hearing anything of what is it, the Dial of Destiny tie-ins or whatever. I'm not hearing that. But I think we'll be thrilled with this, which is really, really cool. And George, just in time for our big trip in the summer, that should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. This is the most greatest attraction at Disneyland Park in my eyes. Like, anytime that I am able to come out to Disneyland, it was such unfortunate that the last couple times I came out, it was done because of the refurbishment. But I am glad to see that it will be up for the summertime. And I think it was a great strategic move on Disney's part to reopen it on St. Patrick's Day, when the park is, because I actually was on the Disneyland website checking reservations, and March 17th is completely booked out.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
So they picked a good day to, kind of filter in the crowds there of reopening this attraction.
Hey, the spring break crowds are in full bloom. I know this day, I believe this entire week up until Saturday. I think Saturday was a tier 6 day, and then I think everything else was tier 5. So it was, it's pretty heavy week, at least what they expected. Disney did. So it's can't have this open soon enough, but as I reiterate, hey, give it all the time it needs. It looks like it did get a nice decent refurbishment, so that is really, really good to see.
And honestly, I would go on that attraction regardless, but I mean, the last several times I did go on it, it did need, some touch-ups. There was some things that were outdated, needed, refreshed. And based off of just what they had shown with the oversized skull, of how the projection mapping is added to that, like how they did with Mara, I feel that the rest of the attraction is just going to blow us away even more than what the attraction has already done.
Yeah. No, it needed. This has been an ongoing thing for this attraction. Effects here and there have been broken over the years. It'll be good to see it in full working order, just in time, like you guys said, for Indy 5. Hey, it's a great franchise. It's a great attraction. Much overdue. So,
yeah, for sure. Now we want to switch gears here a little bit, and here on OG55, we not only celebrate what's happening right now, but we also celebrate the achievements of those who came before us, so to speak. And there's no better person to celebrate his life and legacy than Raleigh Crump right now. Unfortunately, he passed away very, very recently at the age of 93. I think, George, you were saying about 2 weeks or so after his 93rd birthday, which was very, very heartbreaking. This is one of the last Imagineers to have worked beside Walt. I think besides Bob Gurr, I think this is we're losing him, and it is very sad and very tragic. But here on the show, we wanted to celebrate his life, because honestly, there are a lot of people who really aren't aware of the contributions that this amazing man made to Disney parks here at the Disneyland Resort, and also at Walt Disney World Resort. So, George, I think you can clue us in on a little bit of his life and legacy, and I'll go ahead and I'll add
Absolutely.
to it.
Well, it was actually something that you had brought to my attention, of how you said it, Dre, when I was talking to you on the phone today. Again, we just have to get T-shirts, talking to Dre on the phone.
Exactly.
That I loved your take on that. Bob Gurr designed the Doom buggies for Haunted Mansion. It's the ride vehicles that everyone goes in every day, but it's what encompasses those Doom buggies, what is around you, the prolific art design and architecture and everything, the aesthetics that is put into that attraction. That was Raleigh Crump. He was the art designer for the Haunted Mansion, and he was the last living Imagineer that had worked on that attraction up until his passing. Now there is no one, unfortunately, left that has worked on that attraction, but I feel that his legacy of being now one of, well, he obviously passed, but being one of the last survivors to work close with Walt. I feel like those are the people that I feel that should be cherished the most, and it's because these are people that are living in our time, but they lived in a legacy with the man that started this whole company. And I forget if one of you can remind me, someone posted on Twitter that the story of how when people go to the park and they sit in the rocking chair on the porch on Main Street, and little do they know that right above them is Raleigh Crump's window, and it's just very telling. Josh Taylor, yes.
Yeah, and Josh has actually been on the OG 55. He's been on the Story Geek show with Jay Shearer a lot. He's a great guy. He's into a lot of nerd stuff, but also theme park stuff and what have you. But this is the tweet that George is talking about, which is a beautiful tweet. It's funny you mentioned that, George. I was actually going to share that. So it actually worked out perfect. But he says here, the old bra shop feels different tonight. It's crazy to think how many people sit here and will never know the contributions Raleigh made with this window right above them. Go ahead, George. I just wanted to share that.
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you did. And it really is a shame because as Dre had pointed out, a lot of people don't know Raleigh Crump, or they may have heard his name, but don't really know the contributions and how much of an impact he was as an asset to the company. And again, working closely with Walt and knowing Walt and working on art designs for beloved classic attractions such as the Haunted Mansion. And for us Disney diehards, we go into attractions and we can pinpoint another Disney legend that we just lost recently. We can go into Pirates of the Caribbean or It's a Small World, and we can look at the costuming and we say, you know what, that's Alice Davis. That's all her. To someone in the normie world, they're like, okay, they're characters, they're in costumes, they're in, but we know the history behind it, and it's much more of an impact for us in the Disney community that it may be something subtle to somebody else, but for us, it means something just a little bit more.
Well, beautifully said, George. And I just want to say here too that while we are losing a lot of the old timers, right? The Walt Disney era, right? We're losing a lot of these legends, and it's incredibly sad. I can promise our audience this: we will never we will always keep their legacy alive here on OG 55. We constantly bring up Walt Disney, obviously. We keep his spirit and energy alive. We will constantly bring up Raleigh when appropriate. Howard Ashman, we always bring up Howard Ashman. It's a small channel, right? But I, as much as possible, like to keep what these amazing people did front of mind, and share with our audience and keep that legacy and that light burning constantly. And so yeah, we will not forget Raleigh here. We will bring up Raleigh, I'm sure, many times in many shows going forward, including Walt, including Howard Ashman, and all the other amazing people that we've lost over all these years. Nine Old Men. These guys and gals have done an incredible job with everything, everything that we love with the Walt Disney Company, all the parks, all the movies, the films. These people had a huge part in creating the foundation for this. this thing that brought us all together, the friendships we forged, my best friends, George and Dre. I would have never met these gentlemen. I said it many times, if not for Walt and the work of like Raleigh Crump and Howard Ashman. I'm telling you, it's so important, and we will do
these.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
brother.
finish. No, I was just going to say, these are the people that we, I'm continuing off what you were saying, OG. These are the people that created something that we all have a liking to, that we all have an interest in. And that's something very special and unique. For you to create something as simple as an art design or an architectural structure or costuming, and it could actually bring people together to have a decent civilized conversation to say, let's talk about this. Like what era were they thinking about when doing this background story of this? And this is what actually ties back to our conversation with Tiana's Bayou Adventure. There's the lack of that, unfortunately. The Imagineers, the Disney legends that had worked on these parks from its conception all the way through to the rich Disney history that we know and love, that they paid attention to detail. They went down to every little scrim. And again, Dre and I were talking on the phone. These people were out there picking up shovels, shoveling dirt, planting stuff. They were getting their hands dirty. And it is so much easier to just say, you know what? Yeah, I'll sit in a air-conditioned room behind a computer with a suit and tie on and create something, when these people actually physically did it with their own bare hands.
Yeah, with not a whole lot to do it with, which was very, very interesting. Raleigh Crump was an amazing guy. I mean, he was definitely one of my favorites of the first gen. I mean, this guy was a very unique individual. He definitely he definitely blazed his own trail, let's say, in this field. And a field littered with a bunch of old timers. A lot of people who had worked with Walt ever since, like, his Hyperion Studio days, Nine Old Men, all of that, and he's working beside them, not only in the animation studio, contributing to several films such as Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, and 101 Dalmatians, among others. But then, Walt, he just has that has that eye for talent, right? He's just like, hey, I think you have a knack for this. Let's go ahead and bring you over from the animation studio to Wet Enterprises. And so that's exactly what he did, and he really kind of flourished in that role. It's interesting how Walt kind of had a sixth sense about that. Crazy, But Raleigh, I mean, whether it's the architectural facade, the or at least portions of it, the iconic clock face, right at the end of Small World, or whether it's those amazing Polynesian figures, where he took a plastic fork from the confectionery and took it with him and carved the wood grain patterns on those tiki gods and so forth. Right? It's just he's just got just an iconic sense of style right and there. Art. And Disney has capitalized on that for years. Hey, what was the last time you bought a piece of Small World iconography or merchandise or whatever? It didn't have that clock face on it. Right. Those great tiki room designs. I'm sure many people have gotten the tiki mugs and so forth at Trader Sam's. A lot of that was inspired directly from the contributions of somebody like Raleigh Crump. Even in the Haunted Mansion, you come out of the crypt at the very end of the attraction and you see that sconce on the wall, and it's holding up a torch, and it's like, what is that, a hand? It's like, yeah, that was Raleigh Crump right there. And it was, and just as a person, he was so fantastic, right? Yeah, now, he was great. A bit eccentric. Back in that time, it was a faux pas even to drink on the studio lot, but he was doing the a little bit of and look, hey, you have Dick Nunes over there who wouldn't have taken that, no way, no how. Obviously, he had a confrontation with the Yippies in the 70s, which is very, very interesting. But here's Raleigh Crump, doing a little bit on the side there. But look, he was such a kind of visionary. He was so out there. He was so unique. His identity was, through his art, was just it just stood out from the rest of the pack. Walt really, really did like that. He really did appreciate that, and he kind of considered Raleigh to be one of his favorites in that regard. Well, unfortunately, when Walt passed, a lot of people didn't actually like the fact that he was one of Walt's favorites. A lot of people were kind of envious of his position, and they kind of took that out on him, which was really kind of unfortunate. But his contributions, I mean, they are legendary. You might not know the man, but you know the work, I can assure you. And I kind of wanted to play some clips. Now, OG, I don't know if this is going to get taken down. It might. And if it does, look, I'll provide you links with timestamps in the description. That way you can kind of play some of these for yourself in the event they do, in the event that we can't show them. But I wanted to play you. I wanted to play you this one right here. His famous story regarding the Museum of the Weird. Now, the Museum of the Weird, just to give our audience, some backstory on this, while Raleigh Crump and Yale Gracie were actually together coming up with ideas for the Haunted Mansion and some of those illusions and effects and so forth that would be eventually used for this attraction. Raleigh had kind of an idea of this kind of weird stuff that can live in amongst the actual mansion itself. Well, Walt, he was a little bit uneasy with that, though, as we'll detail here. And he comes up with a creative solution, which is really kind of cool.
And real quick, Dre, if we pause along the way, better chance of not having an issue. So maybe we could pause a little bit, talk,
sure.
A better chance of then running it all the way through,
No problem. Here we go.
Sometimes, in this realm of the Disneyland that never was, there are attractions that are developed, like the Museum of the Weird, that actually morph into an attraction that opens here at Disneyland. And in that case, it was the Haunted Mansion. It was something that Raleigh Crump, one of our early designers, had developed.
Tony Baxter, of course, a lot of admiration for this guy, as one could possibly imagine.
And I did a candle man that was melting, and I did a chair that stood up and talked. And while I'm working on all of this, everybody else, the management at WED and the art director said, that stuff's too weird. Walt's not going to like that. And they put all my stuff on a table and against the wall in the corner. Fine.
That stuff looks pretty
Weird.
crazy. Go ahead.
No, I was just say, they say ideas never die at Disney. I would love to see like a Hollywood Museum of the Weird and have it and borrow some of Raleigh's designs in that and put it in DCA, right? I mean, why can't you make something like that nowadays and pay honor to the man? And I think it would be a great attraction. But go ahead, Dre.
Or if they or if they would kind of put these subtle things in, that if they were to add something more to the Princess and the Frog for like Dr. Facilier, for his kind of dark room type of weird.
Oh yeah.
Like how they can kind of incorporate little Easter eggs for
like
that
the
kind
voodoo
of thing.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and the Museum of the Weird kind of concepts have been integrated into. There's some references, there's some Easter eggs, and around some iconic locations in Disney, which is kind of cool. But I agree with you, OG. A little bit more of this, I think, will be really cool. But here we go.
Finally, Walt said, "Well, is that it?" And Dick Irvine said, "Yes, Walt, that's it." He says, "What's this stuff in the corner?" So he and I both scooted our chairs over and sat in front of all this stuff, and I took him through it. And he said, "But it's weird." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "But how are you going to use it?" So we went back and forth like this about 3 or 4 times. And he says, "I'm out of here." And he got up out of his chair and left the room. Everybody said, Raleigh, we told you he wouldn't like it. Wouldn't like it. Too bad. It's too weird.
Yeah, you got to understand. Walt was born in 1901. Okay, this is like, what, the early 60s,
Right,
Some of this stuff was a little, it was out there. Let's just say that. It was out there.
The next morning, I come to work at 7:30, and Walt's sitting at my chair.
Uh-oh.
He's in the same clothes he was wearing when he left that afternoon the day before. And he said, "I didn't sleep last night." I said, "You didn't sleep? Why?" And he said, "Because of all that stuff you showed me, that weird stuff." He said, "Raleigh, I know what we're going to do with it."
This is Roland Crump, who for the project here is sort of acting as the interior decorator of a house of What do we call it?
Museum of the Weird.
Museum of the Weird.
Museum of the Weird. I
That's
like
a
how
great
he
drop, by the way. I love it. Oh, Walt is so amazing. Look at a young Raleigh right there. I like that. You know.
or as Walt calls him, Roland.
Oh, yes. Roland. Oh, I do apologize. Uncle Walt. Do apologize.
And they all said, you know, Rolly, we knew you had something there. And I said, yeah.
A lot of people didn't believe in the Rolly vision, let's say, right? But I wanted to
because
let's
the
see if
day
I can get this
before,
card
and he
here,
said,
right there. Yeah, that's that cart actually. If you look at some of the pieces on the cart that you exit out into from Disneyland's Haunted Mansion, right? There's like a merchandise cart that's kind of. It takes inspiration from this directly. It's really interesting. Take a look at it next time. I think you'll see some resemblances.
Is that the Infinity Gauntlet I see on there? No.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, Roland knew. No,
he knew. He predicted the Avengers Endgame.
Exactly. But yeah, Walt was like, "Whoa, this is some crazy stuff." He didn't sleep. I mean, he couldn't sleep anyway. But no, I mean, he was really taken aback by this kind of stuff and inspired a whole attraction in its own right. But unfortunately, by the time these ideas started to develop and, well, some things started to shake out in a way when it came to management, when it came to decisions and executive approvals and so forth, the Museum of the Weird got dropped. Haunted Mansion got built. They incorporated some of his designs, but not enough of them, I think. And it is kind of unfortunate. There's another clip I want to play, if we can.
Yeah. Look how yellow that building was back in the day.
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that weird? Yeah.
There's some early footage of the park, and you just go, "Wow, that is a lot different than what was originally envisioned." Hey, and even you got the red sidewalks there. Showcase would be very pleased.
Oh, he would. Yeah, no bricks. I don't see a brick in sight. He would love it.
No bricks. But this was around the time that Walt passed, and and just to show you just how affected these people were and how Rolly was himself about Walt's passing. I wanted to kind of play this, and you can still feel that there. These people really loved Walt. These people really wanted to bring his vision to life and to work under him, and it affected them dearly. And I kind of wanted to play Raleigh's sentiment regarding Walt's passing here.
Absolutely.
Well, we lost the spirit. It's what's really sad. The day that Walt passed away, everybody that worked for Disney Studios or any part of Disney felt they worked directly for him, and so everybody lost him. Everybody did. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. And so, you didn't have a father image. You didn't have a leader anymore. I mean, it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible because I don't know, there was just something about him that when you came to work, you were going to work for Walt. You just weren't going to work you weren't going to a job. You were going to work for Walt. And I think he was in everyone's heart. And so it was horrible. It was horrible. It's like Ollie Johnson said, and most of us did. They cried all night.
Wow.
Sad.
The impact this man had and still has to this day. And it's stuff like that, people will always ask me, like, why do you care so much about Disney, right? Like, why do you care if they do well or don't do well? For me, it's important. For me, this company is so important because of that Walt connection. This is such an experiment that Walt started here with this with Disney, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, what he accomplished, and now here we are 100 years later. It's still around. I want it to thrive and to flourish. I want Walt's vision to continue. And that's why I think I'm so invested into the Walt Disney Company, is because of that story of Walt, and creating this amazing thing. And here we are now, 100 years later, we have new creatives and new people working on stuff. Who would have thought, But I just think it's a beautiful thing that Walt and all these amazing people built. And I hope it's with us for a lot longer. I hope. Cheers to the next 100 years.
Absolutely.
And I just have to say, this is only my personal belief, of what I believe in. But I feel that when Raleigh left us, he approached those pearly white gates, and Walt was there to greet him. And basically, he just says, "That'll do, Roland."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's rough. It's rough, and it's gonna get. Look, a lot of these that first generation, that Walt generation, they're getting older. And it's hard. I mean, a few years ago,
left that still even had worked with him, still with us in any capacity. But go ahead, OG.
Yeah, I remember. Wow, it's almost been, I think, a decade now, when Annette Funicello passed away. That hit me hard. I was really, really depressed about that for weeks. I was really like you lost a family member. I never met her, obviously, in my life, but that connection growing up with all her movies and the Mickey Mouse Club, that was really hard. And I don't know. It's sad losing this amazing group of people. It is. It's sad.
Yeah. I recently with George, I think you might know this person, Mindy. I think you've yes. Went with her down to California recently, and we took a little Walt tour, right? So we went down and we visited Tamil Shanters, right, where Walt used to eat, and he used to get lunch with the animators. Got to sit in that booth and so forth, and got to see where a lot of the ideas for Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and many other Disney projects were actually dreamt up, right, and where it would be discussed. And we kind of drove around, and we went to where the Hyperion studio was located, right? We got to see that site and so forth. We got to see just the amazing surroundings of the area. It's just gorgeous. It's just beautiful over there in Southern California. Drove around a little bit, and you can kind of see the seven, they call it the Snow White cottages or whatever, and you can see that architecture, that Tudor architecture that really contributed to not only Snow White and Pinocchio, but also Disneyland in a lot of ways. Got to see his original houses and so forth, and where he lived and all of that. Got to drive across the Hyperion Bridge, which was obviously the inspiration for Imagineers when it came to the bridge in Buena Vista Street, where the monorail beam is. Then went to Forest Lawn, and we saw where Walt's final resting place was, and to see this this person followed, where he lived, where he worked, where he ate, and where he was inspired, all this kind of stuff, and to see his final resting place there just kind of remind you of just how amazing this man was, and just the amazing people he brought around him, and the amazing things he gave to the world, and why we actually do a show like this in the first place. It's all for Walt. It's all about carrying on that legacy. And at the end of the day, we might speak critically and we might speak positively, but it's all about, just having the best Disney company that we can with his name on it. Just to carry on that torch, because not a lot of people are. Unfortunately for Raleigh Crump, he actually recorded a lot of his thoughts through his more Cute Stories series. He has about 6 volumes. You can get them on Amazon. Look, it should be an automatic purchase. I'm sure the family would appreciate it right now. Listen to those. There's some really, really good stuff there, and it gives you a key and a kind of a sense of of what those early traditions were for the company and why they're so important to preserve them now.
Yeah, incredible. Absolutely incredible. What a legacy. And it's crazy to me to think about how this man, Walt Disney, he started this thing. He was like the spark, right? And all of these, Walt Disney was a legend, an incredible human being. But his work and what he started branched out, and there were legends that we got to know from the legend of Walt. Like, for example, Howard Ashman, in and of his own right, is a massive legend in music. Ollie Johnson, Frank Thomas, Raleigh Crump, the Sherman Brothers. These are all icon giants in their industry. And they all came about. We know all these amazing men and women because of Walt. because of what he started, that spark, with Steamboat Willie and Oswald, and you know what, I'm gonna do the first sound cartoon. You know what, we're gonna make the first animated movie. And you know what, we're gonna make the theme park. And you know what, we're gonna build a city of tomorrow. And it all started with him, and all these great people came about afterwards. And it's an incredible legacy. And it's sad to hear about Raleigh, but we will continue to keep his legacy alive here on OG55. Talk about his work like we do a lot of other amazing people that we've lost along the way, because we'll do our part in keeping their memory alive. Absolutely.
That's what we do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for coming on and talking shop. There a lot going on today. It really, really, really good time. I'm going to put some links in the show notes description down below. Dre, if you could send me the Raleigh Crump stuff, the links, I'll put those down there. I'm also going to put down Kamran Pasha's Patreon. We shared some stuff from that. I think it's only fair to link it down below. He is an awesome resource of information in Hollywood, more specifically, not really theme parks per se, but if you're into like the studio side, the corporate side, like the C-suite, Lucasfilm, he's a wealth of knowledge, and he's a really interesting guy. So I'll link his Patreon down below. But Dre, if you can go ahead and close us out, where can they find you on social media?
Hey, best place to find us is, or find me anyway, is going to be on at Vash Sky. It's right down there. And as it's displayed right there, just go ahead and type that in, and it should pop up for, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. That's an interesting name we haven't heard for a while. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, remember she was on the short list to be CEO and all that, and then what happened to that? I don't hear anything about McCarthy anymore.
Interesting.
Now it's about Daddy Josh and Dana Walden.
It's just interesting how that's all kind of played out. Story to watch for sure.
It's funny that they were all sitting in the theater watching the Oscars while she was probably out doing valet parking.
Valet parking, yeah.
We should only be so lucky. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel watch right now at Orange Grove 55, where we have some amazing shows, both in the works coming up, being posted, whatever. Some of them from my host to my left right there, Orange Grove 55 with his amazing Orange Nerd show, and the classic Orange Grove 55 that you're watching right now. George down below with his amazing Citrus Corner, which goes into everything sweet and sticky about Walt Disney World. There you go, right? And Story Geeks with Jay, where we're talking about all about right now. It's all about Mandalorian, right? So we're talking we're talking Mandalorian season 3, all the episodes. I think we're gonna record a show very, very soon on this latest episode, which is getting some very interesting reviews, and I cannot wait to hear what these guys have to say. So if you want to go ahead and get on that action, and my own Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. You want to get on that action? Well, you got to subscribe right here to the Orange Grove 55 channel. What should we do here? What should we do?
In light of, we were just talking about the legacy of the company and Walt. How about we hear it from Walt himself?
Oh, here we go. I got it.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
There we go.
That's perfect.
There we go. And down below, Mr. Family Man 23. Take it away, sir.
Absolutely. I'm the Disney Family Man, anything but anyway, you can check out my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You can check out the new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. It dives into a lot of the deep, rich history of the company, with Walt himself and the people who knew him best. So definitely check out that podcast. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but as Mr. Vaskai blatantly put it, sticky Disney news and info.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for talking shop, and thank you all for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts on Raleigh Crump's legacy. We would love to hear from you on what him and his work means to you. Tiana's Bayou Adventure, everything we talked about, the HR stuff, the Hulu stuff. There's a lot going on in the world of Disney right now. Some good, some not so good, but we're going to report on all of it. But comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful